colonized people can enact towards their colonizers that will ever compare to what colonizers have done to them. That compares to the millions of kidnapped and enslaved people, to the thousands of years of history and way of life that has been wiped out, to the languages that have been lost, to the entire caste system that has been created, to the relocation and murder of millions, to the subjugation of entire nations, and to the subjugation and profit of stolen land.
She is right. Do I need to explain?
Wait, what? Okay, hold on. I haven't watched the Professor Flowers debate, so I'm like indifferent or ambiguous. I don't have a strong opinion. That kind of sounded like a justification for genocide, though. If I'm being totally honest, I kind of got that vibe from that. But
I went on a long rant on this in the last video, but I'm gonna do it again because I think it's really important to this conversation, to the way that white people who talk about the issue of race have this conversation. We get really upset. We have a gut reaction such that part of being on the left, part of feeling like we're on the right side of these issues is inherently comes with it a level of feeling like criticism of being that which we criticize is like the biggest shot one can take at us. So it is very challenging for us as white people who identify as somewhere on the left to possibly hear arguments that the way we think about the race issue is incomplete or it's wrong or there's some anything that doesn't fulfill or line up with the way we already think about it. It is like the biggest possible shot at our sense of ego. Because we have told ourselves that we are part of the not part of the problem, part of the solution. In the same way that I think a lot of men who call themselves feminists or identify on the left or this, that, or anything, right? Someone telling us that we are still acting in a patriarchal way, that we are being misogynist, that we are upholding problematic behaviors, right? Again, we don't react to it well. In fact, we react to it really bad, and the times when we act most misogynist and most blatantly misogynist tend to be a result of that kind of interaction, where maybe a woman tells us something we just said was a little sus, right? So the thing is like once you just like acknowledge that's just a real phenomenon, then all of a sudden this sense of ego that we have that's like holding us back from engaging any further, it kind of evaporates pretty fucking fast, because we do come at this from a good place of wanting to be empathetic, wanting to be understanding, wanting to be loving, wanting to treat human beings as fucking human beings, right? But when you've got yourself convinced that you're the fucking solution to the problem and someone's saying, you might not be as much of the solution as you think, well, that's really fucking hard to hear. It is. It turns people off really fast. But for the people who are the actual victims of oppression, when we get upset by that, when we get all on edge or whatever, it's like they don't have the fucking time of day to deal with that uncomfort, right? And this is where the like, it's not our job to educate you fucking thing stems from, right? Is like actual victims of oppression, frankly, don't have the time or energy to try and to deal with that phenomenon, to deal with straight white men getting uncomfortable about these topics, regardless of their intention. It's just like, how could you? How could you possibly have the time of day? It's to use my silly, cheesy, not silly or not cheesy, but just sort of like weird analogy that probably doesn't get used very much. But the analogy I made in the last video about the American Revolution, right? If a British soldier were to open up to or in a conversation with some potential revolutionaries, right? And for whatever reason, it's been communicated that this British soldier is like maybe questioning how things go. They're sympathetic to the American cause, right? And the American revolutionaries will challenge him, start to really push him and say, well, that's great that you understand that this is a problem, but do you understand that in order to fix this problem, you need to do a lot more than just say you understand that the problem exists. In other words, that by continuing to just carry out your life of being a soldier, you are being part of the problem. You are upholding the problem. By not really challenging this on any sort of deeper level, you're not really actually helping us very much. You're still going to leave us with no choice but to violently uprise or whatever, right? And this an imaginary British soldier, right, could feel very upset by this. He's like, God, do you all fucking realize how much I'm risking by like talking to you and like admitting that like I question the crown or whatever? And they're like, dude, we don't fucking care, man. we don't get to vote. We have no fucking rights. We don't have the time of day to listen to your fucking complaining about your situation. Do you understand? If you really understand the dynamic the way you say that you do, then don't fucking complain to us about your situation right now, right? We don't have the fucking time of day for it. And that's exactly what's going on. This is not a justification for fucking white genocide any more than the founding fathers were trying to come up with a philosophical justification for the genocide of British people, right? But the point that the violence, both physical and in every sense of the word violence, when you talk about the destruction of culture, the destruction of family life, the destruction of one's sense of humanity, the just emotional violence, the lasting economic violence that will last for generations and generations and generations, and on we go. That violence can't be measured. The point is not that that we're trying to like one up you and be like, no, it's like cool if we just kill a bunch of white people because it won't be as bad. It's just that it literally is the point that stop trying to measure it. Like, measuring it is the problem. We've already done irreparable damage. We're past the point of measuring any of this fucking shit. So stop framing it in such a way that we're trying to measure it. Like, at a certain point, victims of oppression, they have more than just a right. Like, they have a fucking ethical obligation themselves to try and get out of it. If not for themselves, for the future generations that are going to come after them, right? This is more than just a we want to not be oppressed because being oppressed doesn't feel good conversation. This is, they have a responsibility to do it. And we as human beings, regardless of who we are, right, have an ethical obligation to fight back against oppression. And not just to say oppression's bad, right, but to fight back against it.
Okay.
Into the subjugation and profit of stolen land.
She is right. Do I need to explain that further? Hopefully not, because I'm not gonna.
It's not my job to educate you.
But I want you to watch how Vosh reacts to this clip on his stream.
There is no amount of violence that colonized people can enact towards their colonizers that will ever compare to what colonizers have done to them. That compares.
It's such a bad framing too. The idea that, so what, like, are all people?
No, it's an important way of framing it because it's an important way of framing it because of the nature of what is going on right now, which is that white people online and in the discourse are trying to act like we need to be fucking race blind when it comes to these issues and to just start treating everyone equally and with love and this, that, and the other thing, right? And so it's an important caveat because the point that she's making, framing it that way, that aggressively, is to make the point clear that we are past the point of measuring this. There has been so much damage done that framing it in such a way, such that we are that we are trying to measure the violence that oppressed people, that colonized people enact against their oppressors in trying to get out of their oppression. This is not violence for no reason. We're not talking about killing white people just for the fucking sake of like, hey, that white person like cut me off in line and they made me mad, so I'm gonna kill them because they, they're colonizer, whatever, right? This is the entire conversation is in the context of talking about oppressors trying to break free of their oppression. That is the violence that we're talking about here.
people that descend from colonizers also colonizers? And are all people that descend from the colonized, the victims? Can the colonized really do no amount of damage? Is there like some cumulative effect of damage done on people where there's like a scorecard? Like if black people were to wholesale start murdering white people, we'll say in an American example, could we be like, well, you know, we still haven't even, you know, got to half your points if you consider the 200 years of slavery and blah, blah, blah. Like, is that really or I don't know what year the slave trade started in Europe and shit, but like, is that really like the argument I'm gonna go with there? That seems like it seems a little bit sussy baka.
First of all, that's not what she meant, because that's a totally different concept. Is that even like relevant? What does that have to do with what we're talking about?
History and way of life that has been wiped out, to the languages that have been lost, to the
Also,
It's the
doesn't this
entire
kind of
point,
support
dude.
my argument? This seems very strange to me, because it feels like the implicit suggestion is that the violence that colonized people do is okay because it could never be enough. You know what I mean?
So Professor Flowers says
We're not
these
talking
things
about
cannot be
violence in the
compared, and
abstract.
attempting to
We're
do so
talking about it
downplays
in the
this very
context
real
of
history
oppressors
oppression.
trying to
Again,
break
an
free of
objectively true
oppression.
statement. And to this,
That's such a weird, horrible way of framing violence that just is actually so bizarre. Like, I can't imagine in what context I would ever wheel out that argument to justify or even talk about some action.
Because you are not
I would
an
be so
oppressed
curious. Like, let's say a
person,
black man
Steven.
rapes a white
That's the
woman.
point.
Like, well, does that even compare to the amount of white rape of black slaves in the time of slavery? Does that make that kind of like, maybe not okay, but it's still not as bad as what happened historically? Like, that's just such a weird comparison. I don't even know where you would I don't know where you would bring that out at in a discussion.
Bosch responds, you claim to not want to do white genocide, yet you cite historical oppression, which could be used to justify white genocide. Huh, curious. Very curious indeed. Checkmate.
No, it's not that Vosh was citing historical oppression, because it wasn't the problem that you were citing historical oppression. The idea was that you were citing historical oppression and saying no amount of modern day violence could ever compare to it. That's a way different and more extremely sussy claim to make. That's a way different type of thing to say.
I still think that
This
that's
is racist,
missing the
right?
point on
Am
that
I allowed
one.
to say that yet?
I think what you mean to say is that while this individual act may not be racist, the way this flow of information has been set up has led to a racist outcome. That outcome being Professor Flowers discussing historical oppressions here is seen as a potential justification for retributive violence, which was never her point and not how these claims should be viewed, especially from anyone claiming to be on the left.
Yeah, so it's racist.
Okay.
Thanks to their debate, which in effect served to legitimize this fear of retribution rhetoric, a white supremacist narrative is being repeated all over the place, making it so that topics requiring nuanced discussion, like black separatism and black nationalism, are framed as being not only inherently violent, but equivalent to Nazism. If we take a quick peek at some of the chats from that stream, it's quite interesting. Mom said it's time for me to be the colonizer. It's a pro-genocide argument, basically saying that the image of white people in chains while MLK smiles in the sky is based. That is her saying that a white genocide is justified. So that means reverse genocide, good. Leftism, it's good. Leftism, we love it.
thousands of years of history and way of life that has been wiped out, to the languages that have been lost, to the entire caste system that has been created.
Our resident critical race theory scholar, Xander Hall, elaborates here.
I'm gonna say this right now. I'm gonna call it out. When people say woke genocide to refer to like the black separatist stuff, it's kind of racist. I'm gonna be honest here, because it's not woke. All you're doing is putting woke before something that has to do with brown people because it has to do with brown people. It's not woke. There's nothing about what Professor Flowers or Black Hammer or any of these people advocate for that is woke. Being woke is advocating for integration and cooperation. Okay, a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multiracial movement to fight against
So
the
this
systems
is
of
the like
oppression,
race-blind
right?
shit that
is woke.
conservatives do.
Segregation, even if it's we're black people and we want.
Woke doesn't mean nothing. This is so boring. How long is this talk with Vosh? I don't know if I can listen to this guy go on for a whole debate. Woke, nothing that Xander Hall described is colorblind. That's not what he was getting at.
Want segregation. That is not woke. Just because brown people are doing it doesn't make it woke.
Oh, that's just great stuff. We love it. Leftism is when reverse racism is the scariest thing you can think of. Mom, can you pick me up, please? They're not being colorblind. There's a good clip from the YouTuber Bad Empanada that explains how ridiculous it is to try to make this comparison.
So imagine a different world where white people did all the same thing and the black
This guy is one of like the few like he should probably be banned from everything. Like I think this guy makes like real life death threats and shit. He's like unbelievably fucking unhinged. He's like almost everything he talks about, he says like the most dog shit. But he's like, actually, this is actually like an unhinged motherfucker. He's crazy. Like this guy should be like in jail. He's done like some insanely deranged shit on the internet. Jesus. He docs Bastia's name and address. This guy's just done like I haven't even heard that, but this guy's done like some insane shit. He's just wild.
people were more radical and they were like, you know, we want you guys to get the fuck out of here. You know, we're not just going to forgive you for centuries and centuries of oppression, for enforcing apartheid upon us for 100 years. We want you gone.
He
Would that
docs
be the
Bastia.
same thing as
Hasn't he had multiple Twitter accounts banned because he makes death threats to people on them? I should have like a folder of this in case. Oh, hold on.
Nazism? No, not even fucking close, man. Truly unbelievable. And do I think that would be an ideal solution? Also no. Is that what I would want? Also no. Can I understand it? Abso-fucking-lutely, yes.
Did you really just cite Bad Empanada in your video? Looks like you've lost me. That guy is a bad person. Everybody knows that.
Me citing a clip of Bad Empanada saying something that's objectively true is not an endorsement of everything that he has done on the internet.
Wait, But couldn't you also say that citing a talking point from Nazis that might have been true isn't necessarily endorsing Nazism? But didn't earlier you literally say it wouldn't surprise me, or I wouldn't blame people for calling Vosh a Nazi?
That's a
because
gotcha
Vosh
from
has said
Destiny
things that
on that
Nazis
one.
also say. Why does it work sometimes but not other times? Like, okay.
Please stop being a fucking baby. Just look at the meme, okay? From my perspective, Vosh seems to be defensive about these ideas because he is operating on some underlying assumptions about who Professor Flowers is, assumptions that were created when they had their debate. There's an extremely relevant video that I'd like to plug here. Debate Me, How to Know Things on YouTube, from Scottish neoliberalism understander John the Duncan.
There's a difference between being away from and you forcibly expelling people, if that makes sense.
But that's
We're not talking about the Black Kenyans didn't up and leave. They kicked it, or in her words, they got rid of white people.
Yeah, and that's good. I mean, like they got rid of the white people who were the settler colonialists. I don't like.
Okay, dude, look, I like you. I really do, and I don't want to fall out with you. But what you were expressing there is some really yikesy shit, man.
It is
it's
absolutely
good that
not.
they got rid of white people.
Yeah, I mean, like obviously what is being referred to in this context is settler colonials, right?
Right, but not all white people in Kenya were like running the department of kill all black people.
Sorry, John, just have to send them your way, but the Debate Bro deprogramming industrial complex has to start somewhere, and your 2 videos will be our foundational texts. But this one addresses many core issues of online debate culture, one of them being how knowledge is created in these spaces, and how this knowledge, gathered through the act of debate, is often held supreme above all other forms, and how this is maybe not the best thing for the left.
I think the issue with this proliferation of debate is that it further embedded the idea that debate is a legitimate way of finding out whether something is correct and true. This is another example of YouTube's structures influencing how knowledge is produced. The platform encourages certain types of content, which then impacts how both viewers and other content creators view knowledge creation. And this might not be an issue if debate related at all to any sort of truth. And the problem is, it doesn't.
So Vosh's defensiveness, or inability to sort of stop being a silly guy, is a byproduct of this overvaluing of what debate actually is. From Vosh's perspective, Professor Flowers is who she showed herself.
I mean, like, debate can be a way to find truth, or it can be a way to dick wave, but it's the same thing with video essays as well. Like, anything could technically be used to discover truthful things. Anything could be used to just dick wave and scream at people, right? Like,
to be in that debate. And this, above all other things, is the information upon which we should base all of our subsequent attitudes and treatment towards her.
Well, to be fair, Noah, he is a debate streamer. That's his medium. That is how he gathers his information, by talking to people. How else is he supposed to know what they're all about?
That's kind of the issue, Gary. The hypothetical answer to this question is that he can actually watch their videos. He can listen to what they're saying when they've put a lot of effort into researching and presenting their arguments. But this form of listening is antithetical to his content format. In order to retain his position as standing rhetorical genius supreme,
Noah, bad faith, bad faith.
Okay, in order to keep his stream moving and entertaining, he often skips around looking for arguments that he can try to respond to in these videos, or pauses before the points have been fully argued. He actually did the former with FD Signifier's Break Bread, which is disappointing because there was a lot of particularly relevant information in that video.
The scary reality is that the very homogenous nature of their fan bases,
Where's my
who
face?
are fresh out of radical hate-filled movements, and for now, they're
I'm not. Again, like, this is too generous, but the idea that anyone who does debates are like, oh, it's just sophistry, and like they're not as smart as the video essayists, and they're just like, you know, they just do rhetoric, but they don't really have any real like this, like, yeah, no, I don't know.
He acknowledges later in that clip that he isn't giving the video a fair shot and says to go watch it, which is good.
I'm jumping in on this bit at the end, interpreting every statement as though it applies to me, and responding defensively to it. So this is not like a fair representation of the video as a whole. I'd encourage you all to look at the whole video yourselves.
But still, this format presents a clear dilemma to our ability to exchange information. This is documented in Professor Flowers' videos, where she shows the way Vosh doesn't ever actually engage with her arguments in an honest manner.
Now, for the rest of the stream, Vosh skips over the segment where I talk about nationalism in the context of colonized people and enslaved people versus white nationalism. He also skips the part where I talk about black separatism, black supremacy, and even racism. It's an important part to skip, and unfortunately Vosh doesn't realize that this addresses many of his accusations.
Again, those are all linked below. More homework to get through before the next time I post, which at this rate will probably be in like July.
I think what this gets at is like, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong on this, I feel like there's like in the like debate circle, it's like part of like showing off your like intellectual chops is this like capacity to just like react live and like not pre-watch videos. And I think we should encourage debate streamers to, even if they're going to react to it live, to watch in full videos that they're going to react to before they react to it, to avoid that very problem. That seems like it should be promoted.
plenty of time. Don't procrastinate. Make sure you turn in your FAFSA as well. Don't want to miss out on that big old bag of cash. So if we are choosing to ignore all of that and just rely on debate streams for our information, you can probably see the problem this creates, right? No matter how many times Professor Flowers says that genocide is not and was never something that she nor any land back or decolonization activists were talking about, in Vosh and his audience's mind, she will always be the person in this clip.
What do you think of the 6 million white people who live in that country? Do you think the black people, who are by far the majority, have a right to remove the white population?
I think that they would have a right to do that, but I think that would be really harsh, and I think that they're not even going to do that.
Out of curiosity, do you know how many Jews died in the Holocaust?
It's so funny to watch these gotcha moments happen when he gets people caught in these little traps. You can see the excitement on his face. It's like when the shark from Nemo first smells blood.
I think that they would have a right.
I mean, like, can't you... You can still navigate these arguments, even if you have to own some bad, like, or some rough-sounding conclusions. Like, she could literally say, like, well, I think morally they'd be justified from it, but, like, maybe politically it would be unjustifiable, or maybe, like, there's still, like, ways you can move through these arguments. I feel like I've done similar things in talking about, like, violence against conservatives, or certain political people that are trying to remove you or your family from the country. Like, there are still ways to move through these arguments, and they're just like, oh, I can't do it, it's too much, or whatever.
Right to do that, but I think that would be really harsh, and I think that they're not even going to do that.
How to make sticker with sticker app is easy. First, make design, then let's go.
Do you know how many Jews died in the Holocaust?
So to them, she will always be the person that stumbled over the oh-so-simple question of genocide. You're gonna say but? Really? You're gonna say the B word after I just said the G word? Oh, so you want to kill white people then? Okay, I can't believe this. This is so messed up. I'm literally being murdered right now. The problem with these exchanges lacking any sort of nuance was explained perfectly here by the indigenous activist Morgan Khashoggi in her conversation with Vosh. In this clip, she is referencing one of the follow-up conversations turned debates that Professor Flowers had with another streamer.
One of the ways that I saw that was when Dr. Heemdout had said, well, you know, I'm an immigrant and I believe that everybody has a right to live where they live, which is an idea that I agree with. So he says, well, why can't I just live where I live? And Professor Flowers says, well, because you're living on stolen land, and that land is still stolen. And that's also true. Both of these opinions are valid opinions to have, but neither of them fully encapsulate the nuance of what it is to be an indigenous person repping the land back movement.
Okay, fantastic.
Great point, Morgan. Pitting two perspectives against one another in order to find a victor is probably bad if we want to learn anything about these multifaceted issues. I wonder why people are doing that.
You do not then get to attack 6 million ethnic minorities in a country. That's what you're doing.
Me, when someone tells me that my entire online presence creates an irredeemable intellectual vacuum.
Okay, fantastic.
Hassan had some relevant words on the shortcomings of knowledge acquired through debate.
My main goal isn't to thrive on being the big-brained intellectual titan, because when you do that, that just means they are still responding simply to power. You're not actually creating or crafting an argument or showing people a different worldview. You're just simply the big bad gladiator, the intellectual gladiator, and as long as you continue being that guy, they will fucking give you money and give you praise because they think you're the smartest guy in the room, because that's the only way they can understand who is smart or not.
I apologize for most of this video being me playing clips of other people making my points for me, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm not that smart.
Noah Samsen's a fucking idiot.
I'm good at making YouTube videos and talking about other YouTubers, but that's about it. Please don't copyright claim me. You're being paid in exposure. You're welcome, Hassan. But this is what people mean when they talk about how debate streams are all about winning and domination. Vosh beat Professor Flowers in this debate. He won. He proved to the cheering Coliseum crowd that she is the bad, dumb lady, and he is the good, smart guy. That's how it will exist in his mind and the minds of his audience of hundreds of thousands of people until, well, forever, it seems like. Far smarter people than me have tried to explain why this shit is ridiculous and reinforces white supremacy online, but none have prevailed. The debate zone might just be an impenetrable bubble of stupidity.
Hey,
okay, that one was a bit harsh.
Thank you.
The debate zone is definitely not an impenetrable
especially unfunny
bubble of stupidity.
Is that sarcasm?
Nope.
All right, carry on.
I've seen that Vosh is capable of having fruitful conversations with other leftists in the past. One great example is his talk with YouTuber and anarchist history PhD haver Zoe Baker in late 2020. Despite their ideological differences, they shared both of their perspectives on political strategy in a non-combative manner and were able to move forward with a better understanding of each other's views. But when it comes to talking with other leftists about issues he lacks perspective on, it mostly goes like this.
What an asshole.
Or like this.
Are you listening to a word that I'm saying?
Or this.
That guy was actually too stupid to have a conversation with.
Or this.
I'm starting to wonder if you're educated enough to have this conversation.
In before you say I'm clip chimping, cope and seethe, liberals. No, I'm just kidding. I don't say shit like that in real life. All of those full conversations are linked below. Go watch them and see if you can identify where and why they went wrong. Hint. Here is a clip of Vosh talking about how he views these types of conversations that I think is very telling.
I'm gonna put it this way, okay? I've talked to a decent number of lefty video essayists who disagree with me, and not one of them has come out looking good. You guys understand that, right? Like the times we've talked with the video essayists when they come to disagree, like this is not like I'm blinded by their intellect when they come over here. This is very like a very aesthetic obsession. The idea that like, oh, video essayists are smart because they have script scripts.
Once again, he is implicitly reinforcing the idea that the gamer's marketplace of ideas is some supreme form of knowledge creation, and anyone who can't hang with his rhetoric must be
too stupid to have a conversation with.
He follows that up by saying this.
Well, you know what? What I do isn't easy. I don't have a script, and I never think about anything that I do. It's all just off the cuff, okay? I don't have any brain at all. This is just reflex. I'm not even thinking about what I say.
Okay, so he's joking here, and I really do appreciate Vosh's sense of humor. But where's the lie, though? Like, I'm not saying he has no brain. I'm saying it would be awesome if he took this "I'm just a dumb streamer, no thoughts, head empty" approach and actually operated as if he understood that. So, in a word, humility. But it's so strange how he can acknowledge this here in a joke.
I don't have any brain at all.
While simultaneously citing his rhetoric as being the peak of online intellectualism.
Not one of them has come out looking good.
Being open to where your gaps in knowledge are makes things better for everyone involved in interactions. But most of the time, he does the exact opposite of that, and it can be hard to watch.
I'm starting to wonder if you're educated enough to have this conversation.
And so, because of all of this, Professor Flowers now exists as a character in the Debate Bro canon. The crazy black separatist lady that hates white people and loves genocide, and any and all subsequent harassment and content made at her expense is therefore totally justified under the pretense that, well, we saw her true colors in that debate, so she deserves it. Bad, 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 very bad, very bad, bad. Whenever Vosh hears people describe what he does as enabling harassment, he responds with this.
You know, there's a whole narrative about my community harassing people, but in spite of nearly 3 years of trying to track down the people actually doing this, I've yet to be provided a single piece of evidence of it actually happening. Usually the initial claim is some very severe, you know, Vosh community, you know, harassing, like really bad stuff, right? But then I get some screenshots, and it's usually people just being kind of mean, which I'm fine with. I don't have a problem with people being mean to people I don't like.
Okay, if you deliberately mischaracterize someone as being in favor of ethnostates and genocide,
it's ethnic cleansing
to your massive audience. How on earth does this not enable harassment? Like, he's convinced hundreds of thousands of people.
Wait, that's not even what Vosh's claim is, though. Vosh doesn't care if people are just like mean to each other on the internet, right? But like they're talking about probably like racial harassment or like actual like doxing, like real shit, not people just saying like mean things about like how you're whatever on the internet. That's my guess, right? But I don't think Vosh was like, oh, my audience never calls
well,
people
let's
like
not act
Nazis
like they're
whatever.
not being racist.
It's as if he's deliberately trying to miss the point of why what he does is a problem. The response here is especially bizarre if we watch how Non-Compete brought this issue to his attention right before that last clip of Vosh's denial.
What I've noticed, and a lot of people have noticed, is a pattern where whenever you talk about somebody who is, shall we say, marginalized, you know, black or trans or person of color, there's a tendency for those people to receive a lot of kind of like after effect collateral damage in terms of harassment, threats, and other kinds of like, you know, disturbing attacks like that. Now, I've seen it happen with Luna because I'm married to her. We spend all of our time together. I monitor, I help her administrate her comments and that sort of thing. And I also know that people who have shown me similar results, you know. So I guess my first question is, are you aware of that, or would you deny that that's something that happens?
I think I'd mostly deny it.
Non-Compete is being pretty reasonable here, right? Just trying to draw attention to a problem that he's seen firsthand that's actively harming marginalized people. That's directly correlated with Vosh's actions.
Well, hold on. Him being reasonable is contingent upon his claim being correct, which is what they're disagreeing on. That doesn't really make any sense to say, well, he's being reasonable here. Well, they disagree on the fact of the matter.
On that one.
Vosh is just like, nope. Nope, not me, not my problem. None of this is my responsibility. Am I overstepping by saying that this is bad? Bad, 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 very bad, very bad, bad. Related to the issue of the nature of harassment from these spaces is their crusade against identity politics. On multiple occasions, the first thing that comes to Vosh's mind as a potential motivation for people wanting to defend Professor Flowers is that they are doing so because she's black, or caving to identity politics.
There are a bunch of directions you can go in this. I do think a lot of people on the left are just castrated whiteys or whatever, who just refuse to disagree with women of color. I can only see the same pattern so many times where like some woman comes out with some insane shit and people whatever.
This is what Xander Hall references when he calls supporting Professor Flowers wanting to look woke.
We're black people and we want segregation. That is not woke.
Amazing stuff that we're dealing with here. It's just really strange to me that this is the first and seemingly only reason that they could think of as to why people would want to side with her, and not that maybe in her videos she made good points that were well researched and provided more information on these topics than anything that could have ever come from that nightmare of a debate. Points that, had they actually listened to, would have answered all of their stupid fucking questions.
Hey now.
Perfectly valid inquiries.
Okay.
But I guess actually listening to her would mean no more content for them, so never mind.
Hey.
I mean, their content is heavily reliant on drama, and miscommunications can feed into drama, so listening and understanding are both actively discouraged in this online debate space, and that's something which we should try to change.
Better.
By putting all debate streamers in prison.
God damn it.
That's satire, by the way. Abolish the prison industrial complex. Except keep it open for debate streamers only.
Oh my god.
Like, okay, sure, I could see some people jumping to the conclusion that Vosh was in the wrong without really engaging with the content of the debate. They click on the video, see this shouty white devil's advocate style individual and a black lady, and click off to write a mean tweet about how Vosh bad. That probably does happen. I'm sure sometimes even because of internalized racism or whatever, but that explanation can only go so far. Again, I'm thinking using debate bro brain here, but in the same way that Vosh is waiting on proof of his fans' harassment, I have yet to see substantial evidence that the people siding with Professor Flowers are doing so just because she's black. If it's there, someone please show it to me.
Okay, finding proof for either of those claims is gonna be way different, right? Like, it's impossible to prove why somebody supports somebody. But if Vosh's fans are harassing people in like racially mean or like sexist ways, you should be able to provide proof of that, right?
Quantify your claims. That's your guys' whole thing, right? Until that happens, though, it seems like a huge leap in logic to be making, especially given the content of her responses. And it strikes me as, at least ostensibly, quite racist, especially when, thanks to Vosh, this whole anti-identity politics crusade is being waged by leftists all across the internet in places where it has no right to be. For example, on January 9th, I tweeted this screenshot of one of Vosh's YouTube videos where he reviews an introductory lesson on dialectical materialism from Vietnamese communist YouTuber Luna Oi. His video is titled, "This is the stupidest tanky video I have ever seen. Brain damage suffered." The point of my tweet was to say that this title was unnecessarily inflammatory, especially given the content of the video, which is a point that I stand by. But take a moment to look at this reply to my tweet.
Is there an actual problem here, or are we just gallantly coming to the rescue of the helpless and vulnerable female POC?
Like, yep, you got it. That's the only reason. It couldn't possibly be because he called a benign theory video brain damage inducing. You are so smart. I must be one of those circumcised whites or whatever Vosh called them.
Castrated whiteys.
Here's another exchange from this week. A Vosh fan tweets, Professor Flowers advocated for allowing genocide on colonizers. Someone replies, no, she didn't, because she didn't. This person then responds with,
anytime any person of color says anything remotely disagreeable, we're supposed to shut up?
Nope, no one is saying that. Literally no one is saying that. You are just saying that out of nowhere, and it feels kind of racist, man, not gonna lie. In these people's minds, whenever someone defends a person of color that disagrees with Vosh, they're obviously only doing it because they want to look woke or score points with those Twitter tankies or doing self-loathing crimes or whatever. Because why else would they disagree with Vosh? The possibility that he can be wrong doesn't seem to cross their minds. You can see this response in his chat anytime anyone mentions that someone is of racialized or marginalized status.
Inpol.
Vosh and his orbiters have made it a part of the brand to value argument over identity. And while that concept on its face isn't a bad thing, it has clearly grown into a problem where the automatic tendency of his viewers is to write off the perspectives of marginalized communities, not in spite of their race, but because of it. So my call to action in this section is please deprogram whatever it is in your brain that makes you say shit like this before even reading what anyone is saying. Thanks. Also stop watching debate streams. Okay, thanks, bye.
No, don't stop.
So I've said most of what I feel like I needed to say, but I want to take a moment to look at something I found that was interesting to me at the end of Vosh's stream segment. In this clip, Vosh is frustrated by the online left's apparent failings in who they choose to support. It's a long clip, so it's just a long clip. It's just a long clip.
The thing that really weirds me out, and like I hope this doesn't get misinterpreted, but like I follow a lot of small lefty YouTubers and streamers. Like I try to pay attention to like smaller communities so that I don't get too in my head. And there are so many awesome like POC creators who get like no attention, you know? And then it feels like the ones that the online left always jumps to support are the worst ones, you know? It's really weird. Like I very rarely see like these big like jumps to the support of like the really cool ones, not even people in my orbit or whatever, just generally cool creators. Like how many times has this happened? Mel, Luna, Professor Flowers, stuff like that. It feels like whenever the jump happens, I don't know how much of this is like performative self-hatred or what.
The three people that Vosh mentions the online left wrongfully jumping to defend are Professor Flowers, Luna Oi, and Chaos is Mel. There's a common factor between the three of them that I don't believe he recognized here. It's not just that the three of them are small POC creators and online figures, it's that all of their most visible online moments have been fights with Vosh. They've debated him or critiqued him in videos on Twitter or live on stream. They have challenged his standing in the space in one way or another. And whether or not you personally agree with their positions or ideas, leftists jumping to defend them surely can't all be doing so because they want to look woke, right? Like, go watch any of these videos and come back and tell me if you don't find any issues with the way he conducts himself. Online interactions are complicated, yes, and Vosh can't be blamed for everything that goes wrong with them, but it's just dishonest to act like there's no pattern here. And so you might notice that based on how he has framed this phenomenon, with Luna, Mel, and Professor Flowers being the online left's non-white false prophets, something else is implied. In the same way that they are all connected by having challenged Vosh, the small POC creators are connected by not doing that. I don't mean to suggest that this is intentional, that they're playing nice for a host or a raid or whatever, but this still begs the question. If any of them were to end up fighting with Vosh on the big stage, as Professor Flowers, Luna Oi, and Mel did, and have it go the way these interactions went, would he still hold them in the same regard? If the online left jumped to defend them, would it be another case of the idpol Twitter lefties conspiring against him? Would they then become the worst ones?
The worst ones.
The irony here is that when someone in the chat asks him for the actual names of the smaller, underappreciated POC creators he's talking about, this is how he responds.
Want to name some of the cool ones you're thinking of? I should do a list. I'll do a list. I'll do a list sometime. I could pull that together. I need to find a way to access my old like Twitch stuff though, because my Twitch account got deleted. You know, so
he doesn't mention them for the rest of that video. This isn't meant to be a gotcha. This is firstly to say, Vosh, if you're watching this right now on stream, have you made the list yet? If not, you now have my permission to pause and do that, and then share it with your stream, and refill your nuggies, and pay me some money. Seriously. Cash. I need cash. Gimme, 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 gimme. But more importantly, I feel like this is another more subtle example of the way white supremacy operates online. Vosh says that he enjoys all these POC creators' work as a counterpoint to dunk on the people that disagree with him. But when it comes time to actually do the thing that would help them the most, he fails. This might seem like a trivial thing, and perhaps he has mentioned them on his stream before. I don't know. I can't watch every minute of every one. But they aren't mentioned here when there's a perfect opportunity to do so. And I don't think it's reading too far into it to say that this might say something about his understanding of the space. If you truly recognize how much more difficult it is to make it as a content creator when you're not white, from the racially biased algorithm to the majority white audience demographics to the material conditions necessary to enable you to even attempt creating content in the first place, then you should be taking every opportunity to fight against these forces, especially when you get an easy alley-oop like that from your chat. This sort of built-in racial gatekeeping of LeftTube by Vosh and others is something that I don't think gets talked about enough. They have deemed this their movement, and in order to be a part of it, you have to play by their rules. If you don't, you're going to end up fighting a tidal wave of debate bros in your Twitter mentions and comment sections for the entirety of your potentially short-lived career. This is not good or healthy or inclusive. Speaking of which, at the beginning, when Xander Hall responds to that comment about black creators, he also doesn't actually even read that list. He saw the name of a black creator he doesn't like and then started foaming at the fucking mouth.
I'm so glad you brought this up!
Just leftist things. The names on that list were Khadija Umbo, FT Signifier, Shanspear, Foreign Man in a Foreign Land, Yara Zaid, and T Noir. You're probably already subscribed to most of the people on that list, seeing as they were like 3 times my size. But I do want to give a special shout out to Foreign. He's genuinely one of the funniest people on here, and if you're not subbed to him, well, you're missing out. Get this man to 100k 1,000 or I will go sicko mode, and no, I will not elaborate on what I mean by that.
Why aren't you eating right? Is it because eating right is hard? Vita Hustle presents The One. It's the
Cool. We made it, folks. We solved the problem. I think this is the 4th video in my reaction to this stream. I don't plan on doing a ton of like watching a full hour-and-a-half stream and live reacting to that. I mean, maybe I will. I don't know. But I wanted to start off with this one on this channel. It was something I felt like I had a lot to say on, because my biggest takeaway that I would hope that anyone, if anyone watched all 4 of these videos would have, is just like for us lefty folks, like just recognize how easy it is. And I'm not saying that my way of doing it or the points I agreed with or disagreed with Destiny and Noah on were necessarily the right ones. And you have to agree with me, this, that, or the other thing, yada, yada, yada. Right? That's not the point. Because that would be exactly falling into the main thing that I'm trying to argue against. And the point I'm trying to make, right, is that when you watch a stream like this, when you watch videos like this, when you watch a video of Noah's and it seems really convincing, when you watch a stream of Destiny's and it seems really convincing, don't fall for the temptation to just keep watching their content, because that's the echo chamber like begging at you. It's like it's shouting at you like, look how easy it would be to just stay here and not challenge yourself. When in reality, like I think the best thing I can say about myself is that I do try my best to watch a real variety of content. And something I take pride on, if I'm allowed to say that, is that I try my absolute best to, like, each time I have a strong reaction to something, like I'm really trying to find the points where I agree with one side and agree with the other. And almost every video, regardless of who's in it, regardless of who's debating who, there's going to be a moment or two where I agree with someone and then disagree with that same person, or vice versa. And this is a good thing. This is not a bad thing. And there are shortcomings of both styles of making videos. There are shortcomings of every style of making videos. There always will be. But that's the brilliant part of this platform, is that people make a ton of different styles of video. So instead of watching every video by one creator as your way to get educated, just try and like genuinely engage with lots of different people for the sake of engagement. Because when you do that, then like for all of us inner debate bros who want to like hop in front of a fucking microphone and like own the people we disagree with or whatever, right? Like in order to build those debate skills, in order to build those argumentative skills, in order to really see through the common bullshit that happens in discourse, like you need to just like you need to listen to a lot of different people. It's not about finding the one person who's got it figured out. It never will be. It's about listening to lots of different people and drawing your own fucking conclusions from shit. And it's going to sound really basic, and it's going to sound like I'm not saying anything new. It's because I'm probably not, but I don't think that most people are doing that. So, yeah, that's the point. We're done with this. We'll move on to new topic tomorrow.